everyone. Are we ready to start this documentary?
Perfect, let's go.
What do we do? Hi, my name is Victoria and this is Women's in Sports. It's not normalized in society to just stop and think, but I need you for this for just one moment. Stop and think about the words that come to mind. When I say the words women in sport, do you think of judgment? Gender pay gap? They don't belong. Boring? Inequality? Weak? Slow? Misconception? No, you don't.
Hello, my name's Sophia Perkins. I'm 24 years old and I'm a road runner for Best Athletics.
Hi, my name's Kira Stewart. I'm a social media manager and secretary for Future Lions Football Academy.
My name is Ella Tagliavini, although I go by Dr. Ella Tagliavini. I got my PhD a few years ago in sports psychology at Loughborough. My main role at the moment, my full-time role is a lecturer at university level, but I also compete as a player for Fulham Football Club Women. I've been doing that for the last 2 seasons, and I also run my own sport and exercise psychology consultancy.
Hi, my name's Chloe. I currently play for Newport Pagnell Football Club. I'm currently in my final year of university doing sport and exercise science.
I'm Zara Ford and I'm a student at Silverton UTC studying for my A-levels in geography, maths and business management. I have had some experience in motorsport, including a variety of internships with companies like F1 Academy and Racing Pride, and I'm specifically interested in events management.
Hi, my name's Beth. I also play for Newport Pagnell as well as Chloe. I play centre back and I'm also at the Uni of Northampton as well, studying sports coaching in my final year.
When girls take part in sport, it has so many benefits. They develop a self-esteem, gain confidence and resilience, yet despite this, by the age of only 14, girls drop out of sport at twice the rate of boys. Yet how has sport helped these women?
For me, it's about a journey of confidence. So when I first started, I remember having crazy anxiety of just running past other people on the street. Maybe they'd judge me for my breathing or because I looked tired or I was bright red and sweaty. Whereas now, a year ago, I joined Best Athletics and started running competitively, and I'm happy to run in a crowd of thousands of people and it doesn't bother me anymore. The growth
and the satisfaction you can feel as a result of developing and achieving certain milestones, and even coming back from difficult periods of transition, things like injury are very common and things like that. So I think it gives and takes a lot, and I think if you can appreciate that and understand that, you can develop and grow a lot from it.
It's obviously good, like physically, mentally as well, but I just think having that sort of social aspect of it, like meeting new people and getting involved, has just been really helpful.
I feel honoured to have been given the opportunity to support a number of prestigious companies within the motorsport industry while studying for my A-levels, and this has allowed me to develop a number of key skills such as my self-confidence, time management, problem solving and events management, and I'm now even more passionate to continue my career aspirations within this sector.
Being involved in football is sort of like a release from things as well, just like stress, it's like, I haven't played recently but because of my injury, but before it would be like, it's like the highlight of your week, like going to training, playing a game on the weekend, and just sort of like, it's like all your problems go away when you're on the pitch.
So to be working in football for me is actually quite a big achievement, because like I've kind of highlighted, it's not really my first sport. It wasn't the sport I thought I'd get to work in. So obviously a lot of people go into working in sport and a lot of people want to work in football. So to actually be somebody who's maybe not as confident in football and get the chance to work in it was a real achievement for myself.
The world of women's sport is changing, and that's inevitable, capturing the deserved recognition and attention they deserve. However, despite these relentless efforts and incredible achievements of women athletes through breaking records, shattering stereotypes and inspiring generations to come, why is it still 85% of women having abuse online after they succeed?
The difference of like judgment and stuff, I'd say that especially like where I've experienced it with football, there's still a lot of people that like just instantly when they think of women's football, they think, oh, it's rubbish, it's not the same.
You see it on like social media and stuff.
Yeah, but it's like they won't actually try and even watch it. They just instantly judge it like, it's not the same. It's not as good to watch, and things like that. But then you end up getting like my dad, like when he started watching me play, he said he preferred it. He said it was actually better to watch. It was more tactical than the men's game sometimes.
I was one of 4 girls on my course with like 15 to 20 guys maybe. So there was a lot of like the boys group, girls group. But we did kind of mix, and it's been a lot, like it has been fine. But there's just that kind of, oh, you only get picked to do this because you're a girl. You only get picked to do that because you're a girl. Oh, you got that opportunity because you're a girl. And it's like, is it? Or is it just because I'm actually like okay at what I do and I've been asked to do it for a reason?
With football and women's side of things as well, I do notice sort of just with the training, sometimes if you compare it to the men's still, obviously there's the money's still a lot more, but obviously although it's been more promoted with the women's side, I feel like at the lower level still, like with the training facilities, sometimes we're still training on pitches that are quite, like I don't know, like really boggy, you know what I mean, like kind of muddy and stuff, and compared to the men. So I feel like there needs to be kind of a way to kind of maybe overcome that barrier in that sense.
In running especially, I think there's not enough awareness of the performance difference that men and women have naturally. So people presume that men and women will just bash out the same times in the marathon, the 100-metre sprint, and that's not the case. I mean, you look at the world record marathon times, there's about a 10-minute gap between male and female. 100-metre sprint, there's about a second. So there's not enough awareness about that gap between men and women's performance, even though they're still absolutely amazing. And I think with that, you have things like the menstrual cycle, endometriosis, and menopause that women have to go through. So, my partner, for example, will probably come on track today and might have had a rough night's sleep. But for me, I could be on that luteal phase of my menstrual cycle, having to go through that. And sometimes that can land on a race day, and that makes it 10 times harder. And I think there's a lack of awareness for that, the struggles that women have to go through within sport naturally.
I think in terms of the areas that particularly require and continually need attention are particularly around, the importance of, stereotypes and, undermining females' competencies as well. I think we as women get judged maybe harsher than men at times, whether we're playing or working in sport. And I think sometimes that can be unfair. And we need to recognise that women can bring, we're not just little men, we're women. We bring a variety of different skills that maybe men might not have the ability to do. And I also think it's important that we understand or bring more awareness to the importance of, media coverage. We've seen, when you invest in women, you put them on a platform, that great things can happen. We can increase the rate of participation, we can increase the number of fans getting behind the sport, and I think that's super important.
Women leaderships and athletes in sport are critical to driving investments and to improve the sports policy related to gender equality and objectives. And there has been noticeable improvements in the past decade, yet gaps still remain. So maybe this is an issue we need to address from an earlier age.
Although I do believe that there have been more opportunities available recently, and I've had first-hand experience of this during my internship with F1 Academy at the Dutch Grand Prix, and it was very rewarding to see female drivers, engineers and support staff deliver a great sporting spectacle.
I think obviously as women we face different challenges, not necessarily greater challenges, but certainly different challenges to boys and young boys. And I think it's important we recognise that. For young girls in particular, I've experienced it firsthand, having role models is vitally important. Being able to for young girls to be able to see women achieving, being put on a platform, getting the attention and awareness and recognition, I think is super important. So I do think if we have more role models, we can get younger girls involved in sport in more positive ways. I know a lot of young girls can have negative experiences in sport. but aside from all of that, sort of the normal experiences you might face in sport, but those things that maybe we can help avoid, I think is super important. I think also, if we can find ways to improve facilities. I know that a lot of girls are prevented from, continuing into sport because of the facilities or the lack of facilities that they have. And I know that continued lack of facilities does continue to permeate into different levels as well, into adult level sport, and I think if we can improve that, that's super important.
Yeah, so young children, boys and girls, are encouraged to get into track and field from a really young age, from school. I think it's as we get older, because of the lack of awareness around like the menstrual cycle, menopause and things, there's more of a fear of getting into it because they're worried that might hinder their performance or they won't be as quick. I do think as time's gone on, women have been treated as equal in running. I mean, back in 1975, women weren't allowed to compete in events over 6 kilometres. But actually, if you look at the London Marathon statistics for this year, it was a 50-50 split. So I think that just shows in itself that for running in itself, that there is more encouragement for girls to get involved in it, just as much as the men.
So I'd say, well, from when we were younger, it definitely wasn't as big as a thing. It's definitely grown. Like, there's a lot more girls participating now from a younger age. But yeah, I'd just say like it needs to be. I'd say just keep pushing it more on social media, because I think that's where I've seen it grow the most. Like, there's a lot more. Like, you actually like Sky Sports now posting about the women's football and the women's rugby a lot and things, just women's sports in general. So yeah, I'd just say like these to keep being pushed. But sometimes also as well, I think it's due to like the stereotypical like view of like girls just going into like gymnastics or like, I don't know, like dancing, or for example. Like sometimes I think girls are sort of just pushed into it because they think, oh, that's what I need to do because I'm a girl, where really, they should be introduced to rugby, to football more.
It's been a long time coming, but the gap between women and men is finally closing, and this is clearly shown through the fact that the company FIFA had no women in its executive committee for over 100 years. Yet in 2016, FIFA appointed its first female general secretary. In 2018, they launched their debut global strategy for women's football division, and then in 2019, FIFA committed $1 billion to the women's game. Therefore, knowing this, what does it actually mean for those women to be a part and to be treated the same as men?
I think it'd be good, obviously, with like the Euros and stuff's been promoted and stuff, so it'd be nice to kind of see it sort of consistently on TV, like with obviously like the men's side of like football and stuff like that. But I think it'll be one good way to just like promote women in sport as a whole, like with younger girls even starting from a younger age as well. Like, I feel like that will massively help come on like a lot more, and I feel like more girls will get involved from like a younger age, so they'll carry it through with them within like their daily lives and stuff.
It would be much fairer for women to be treated equally. However, the growth in global audiences for sports such as football will likely to dictate this, in my opinion. As an example, women's tennis is just as popular as men's, and the prize money differential has now narrowed significantly. You've also got the example of horse racing, and women jockeys have been integrated into the same races as men, and some of them, like Rachel Blackmore, have been very successful in winning events like the Grand National and Cheltenham Gold Cup.
I think it would be a real achievement, because obviously I work in football. It is a very male heavily dominated sport, but so many key people who I work with are so passionate about making sure there's equal opportunities. They want, like, everyone I've worked with has been so welcoming to make sure, like, I didn't feel like, because a lot of the time I will be the only woman at the ground, or I will be the only woman in attendance, whatever. And then, like, I've always had a very I don't care attitude about it. Like, I just crack on. Like I say, I'm there to do my job, so that's what I'm going to do. But I think for a lot of people who I know who are higher up in their field than are men, they do want to see those equal opportunities. Just because I think because more conversations are happening, maybe men have become a bit more aware.
I think I'm quite fortunate with running that it's been very progressive in being equal. So we compete in our own categories. male and female, and now there's even open categories for those that identify differently. So yeah, when I'm racing, I don't compete against the men don't compete against me, and I think that's quite nice, because even though in a race I could come 100th, but like podium as a female, it's just nice because there's a separation there. When I do race, I tend to not look at that bigger number of what position I come in. I tend to look at where I came in my gender category, because for me that's more relevant on my performance, because I don't bother comparing myself to the men, because genetically we're not the same, and naturally we'll never be as strong, sort of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it would definitely mean a lot, because then, you know, those barriers and like judgmental like situations that we've just talked about, like maybe they would decrease as well.
Yeah.
And it's just more about people having that respect, and again not having that view that just like they instantly view men's sport as better, like I said, when they don't even actually try and watch like a women's game or any women's sport in general,
or just going to Twitter like straight away, or
yeah, like a lot of
saying,
social
like,
media comments
and stuff. So
yeah, like what they like, you always get people commenting like just saying it's like not as good, or you know, things like that. So
when they don't watch the
yeah, so I'd just say like just to have that equal respect would mean a lot, because then, you know, we'd get treated better. We wouldn't have these sort of poor facilities or people having misconceptions about the sport. So yeah,
I think it's really, really important. I mean, like from again, particularly in football, we immediately go to the finances, because obviously money makes the world go around, particularly in sport. But it's not just, you know, equality on a financial standpoint. I think yes, if we think financially, we want to see more and more women earning enough to be able to, you know, actually invest and commit to their roles in sport. That would be great. And I think, you know, I do appreciate there are many driving factors around, you know, why men currently do get paid more than women, you know, but there are also multiple different factors that play into that are not in our control. Things like, as I said, lack of media coverage. You know, the stage in which women's sport is developing. Women's football was banned for 50 years, so we're 50 years behind. And things like that. So I would definitely say it's important that we start to address that financial disparity. But I think also equally it'd be important to address the disparity around, you know, the respect, attention and recognition that we get too, because, you know, the success of women's sport is not just at the elite level, it's at all levels. And I think if we can ensure that women are treated and girls are treated equally, you know, socially as well as financially across all levels, which obviously understanding the stage in which we're at, then I think that can really help not only just the growth of women's sport, but the longevity of women's sport as well.
So understanding exactly how much it would mean to these women to have equality between genders is extremely sad to hear when considering 21% of women would have experienced sexual abuse, 30% of women have experienced serious life-threatening abuse, and 1 in 5 women involved in the sport will receive judgment and misconceptions surrounding their time within the sport industry.
I think online is a massive problem. You know, people hide behind screens, and you know, you don't always know who's at the end of those messages. And I think personally I've experienced it, but I've also seen teammates experience it as well. You know, as women, we are judged maybe more harshly on our looks, and you know, we can get, you know, quite vulgar messages on social media when we are representing our club or organisation, and it's first and foremost a judgment about the way that we look. And I think that's a shame, because I think, yes, I appreciate that looks are important, but also we bring a lot to the sport and to the environments we're working in. I also think, you know, a lot of people can be quite surprised at our level of skill and ability. And I would love for us to be able to change those misconceptions around, you know, why are you surprised at the fact that we can deliver, you know, in big moments, on big stages, in important moments. And so I'd love to change that sort of, you know, negative misconception around the fact that, you know, we are able to perform at a high level. And then I think finally, you know, I would love to be able to change the misconception that we have to feel thankful for everything we get. You know, like I appreciate that we are, and obviously I talk mainly from a football standpoint, but you know, we are still in early stages of the way that women in sport is growing, and you know, the fact that we're getting that investment is great, but I don't always feel that we should have to feel thankful for that because we deserve it. I am grateful. I think that's an important thing, but at the same time we earn it, and it would be nice to be able to change that narrative around the fact that we are being given freebies rather than actually earning those things.
Last season at the team I played for, so there was a guy, like after the game we would go in the clubhouse and just have like a chat and a drink or whatever, and this guy that was there quite a lot, he actually ran and owned the facility we were using, and he was in there basically saying, oh, why are the women's team on the pitch, it should be the men's, and like we could all hear him, and then a lot of the girls got a bit upset about it because he was basically just judging all of us, basically just saying we didn't deserve to be on the main pitch, which was the men's pitch, where obviously like our coaches and a lot of people within the club at the time were like, well, no, they both get the equal opportunity, like it shouldn't just be, oh, it's just the men's pitch, it's just the club's pitch sort of thing, where his view was like, oh no, it's the men's pitch, he was basically saying we're not good enough to play on it.
Yeah, so talking on personal experience, when I have raced, I'll probably come like 30th position overall, but be first female. And I think, when you look at that time, it's because we don't naturally run as quick as what the men do. I remember when I used to start running, and you'd notice that men would sort of sprint to get in front of you as I'd be coming past. And I thought, oh, maybe that's just in my head, maybe I'm just overthinking it. And it wasn't until my partner started running with me and he noticed that men were doing it. And I just think that's crazy that there's men that don't want to be beaten by a woman. That's almost how it comes across to me. Talking about other experiences that I've noticed, there's a female runner in my club, absolutely incredible. She was training for a 2:36 marathon at London. And I remember hearing a comment from a gentleman who we were on a trip with who said that's not even an impressive time. Well, actually she went on to get a 2:37, which is incredible as well, and she placed 9th non-elite female. Now, looking at it from a man's perspective, that if that was a man's time, she probably would have been in thousands. So the fact that she came 9th female at that time just shows the difference.
And I'd say with like coaches and stuff, like, because I've been at a few different clubs over the years and stuff, like obviously a lot of them, sometimes, especially when I've had like male ones, I can be a bit more kind of, I've had like judgmental ones in the past when I was younger, and obviously when I was really young, like I think even at grassroots level, it just kind of, I think I took it more personally at the time, just because obviously you're like 9, 8 years old playing in grassroots and you're obviously playing for fun, but I feel like sometimes the coaches were a bit too like much, like, or putting too much pressure on you, especially from like a young age. So I'd say I've experienced that like when I was younger, like not all the time, but it was something that I'd say I experienced, yeah.
And finally, time to hear some last words from these women in sport who are battling daily against judgment and misconceptions.
Yeah, I think sports and like society's just got to keep doing what they're doing, because like Chloe said, it has improved. Like we've seen, a lot more exposure in the media and things like that. And I'd say as well, like it would be good to keep getting the like men involved in the sport, because like now, even not just in women's football, but like a lot of pundits in the women's sports are men now, and I think that sort of helps the judgment and the misconception, because then other men are seeing those, like say Ian Wright for example in women's football, they're seeing him and then they're seeing a man enjoy the games, then that like sort of judgment then stops. So yes. I think if we keep pushing like men to get involved, that hopefully those judgment and misconceptions would sort of decrease again.
Yeah, definitely with pundits, because that's something I've noticed, like you said, Ian Wright and stuff. I feel like if there was more like men doing that, which has come on, I feel like there'll be a lot less sort of like judgmental, and like it'll be a lot more kind of like how it sort of should be, like, respected and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an exciting time to be involved in women's sport, whether you are a man working in women's sport, whether you are a woman working in women's sport, whether you're a woman competing in sport. I think it's an exciting time to be involved in women's sport, and I think we have numerous examples across many different sports where we've seen just what women can do, and I think that's really, really positive. Myself being involved in football and seeing the growth of women's football, where when I was a child, when I was a young girl, making a career of women's football was not on the cards, and now to see it as a viable career option for a lot of young girls and young women is really exciting. I would like women's sport to get to a place where both men and women can contribute to both men and women's sport without having to look at sport through these gender glasses a little bit. I would love for us to get to a point where we recognise the differences in gender, but we also recognise that we're just putting the right people in the right places, and that would be brilliant. But I also think it's really important that we don't make the same mistakes that men's sport makes, because women are different. We have many different challenges that we face in women's sport that men don't. Things like maternity leave and pregnancy and menopause and menstrual cycles and things like that men's sport don't experience. So it would be great for us to not make those same mistakes and find viable solutions that help maintain the sort of longevity and sustain the sort of rapid growth of women's football at all levels, because there is quite a convincing correlation between investment and performance. And so it'd be awesome to sort of see that, what we can do to help support women in sport in a variety of different ways.
Just never to give up on your dreams and always work hard to try to achieve them. No matter how difficult it is, believe in yourself and grasp all the opportunities that you're given. And with drive and passion, anything is achievable.
I'd say just like it has come on a lot, like since, like I said, like the World Cups are being advertised, the Euros and stuff. I just like to see it obviously just come on a lot more like in the future and stuff, and like hope kind of younger girls get involved with it earlier on. Because even though like we did, I feel like with the boys, like you said, we just spoke about, I feel like if there could be like a solution around them, or just decreasing the amount it like happens within girls, like I feel like it could really help like push women's football, like netball or whatever, like further. So
I think that you should just go for it. If you want to work in sport, don't let somebody else tell you can't. Prove to them why you should be the person they pick.
It's just about awareness. I think awareness with what women have to go through. The menstrual cycle is a massive one, especially for me personally, that not every week I am going to perform the same. And it's almost like I feel like I only get 1 week to go for a personal best. So whereas men tend to have every week, if they want to, if they're feeling good, women, we only have that one phase where we're at our strongest. And it gives us such a narrow window to perform at our best, and it is frustrating. And then obviously as we get older, we then have to go through the menopause, which is a whole nother battle in itself. And I think it's just having more awareness for those struggles that women have within the sport, that it's not as easy as for us as what it could be for others.
This is unfortunate reality. Women doing sports. They're good at sports and they deserve to do sports. Women are just as good as men. They deserve the same chance and the same respect as men do. Now it's the time to stop and think. And take the time to change those misconceptions and issues surrounding women in sports.